The computer. Oh, all right. Well, welcome to the Festival of Data that we're about to share. The party. We
That
got to
sounds
make it
like
a
a terrible, terrible event.
no.
That sounds like a
Hey,
parade no one wants to go to.
Hannah would totally be there every
The
time.
nerds will
The
go.
Festival
I'm
of
excited about
Data.
this. I think this sounds great.
Oh, hi, Carrie over there.
Jamie,
Oh,
Yes.
geez.
Carrie
Hi,
says hi too.
Jacob.
Hello,
Jacob's here too.
hello.
Nice to
Yay,
see everybody
Jacob.
this morning.
She says
All
hi, hi.
Okay. Well, again, as we were saying while I was trying to figure out my tech stuff going on this side of the screen, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, make some new connections. We're talking about relationships, so might as well do that at the same time.
Hmm?
Let's go ahead. Now I got to get to the slides. Let us flip forward. There we go. For those of you who are new to the community, I am Jamie Shibley, CEO of the Expressory. And the Expressory is a strategic engagement agency. And what that means is we enable business leaders to continue to focus on actually running their business while we show their clients, prospects, and other important relationships that they care to increase referrals, retention, and conversion. And look, I'm wearing the same jacket as in the photo. I love when it works out. Crazy.
You look friendlier than me in this screen.
You look badass
nicer.
though.
Yeah, you're evil data person.
So I am here with our research partner, Susan Byer. Susan, I will let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. If we have not met, I'm Susan Byer. I run a research agency called Audience Audit, and we partner with people like Jamie to understand the perspectives of the people that they serve. So super excited to present some new research with her today.
Yay. All right, so let's do this. Now, before we get into all the exciting stuff, let me first set up some of the terminology. You heard me talk about strategic engagement, and if you're not familiar with that, I did look up the definition, and it says it does exactly what I said. It is a business strategy that involves attracting, retaining, and building long-term relationships. But at the Expressory, we took that a little bit further, and over the years, we've developed a methodology to this. And that involves creating an actual plan that brings in the social psychology, so the science of relationship building, to create the detailed plan on how to nurture your business relationship. And then the last term that I really want to call attention to is gifting, because you're going to see that throughout. And I think that it's very common when we hear gifting, our minds naturally go to presents. We've received presents, right? And that is kind of a narrow focus of what gifting is. And if you look at the definition, it is actually says to give something as a gift. And I will add to that, I believe it's to give without expectations, right?
Yeah,
But
we talked about this a lot, didn't we,
yeah,
Jamie, about sort of the terminology here. And I think a lot of us think about as a business, when do I need to send a present to important people for us, clients or prospects or strategic partners or whatever. So that's where most people start, which is why you see this language so much in here. But as you'll see in the survey, we really tried to understand how people feel about this bigger issue of connection and long-term relationships with important business contexts. So recognize that there are various ways people come into this conversation and come into this sort of thinking about this challenge for a business.
Right. And so for us, we kind of challenge it to look at it broader, right? So gifting, giving, really, we look at anything you can give that will showcase that you're being helpful to someone, showing up for them. So that can be research, articles, blogs, any resources you have that you can give to show someone you care. All right. So as we go through this, again, just kind of keep that in mind. Now, the key here is this is the Expressories world. This is what we've been working with for years. And we felt like it was time that we probably step back and validate that this is how, what other people believe when it comes to relationship building as well? What do your clients and prospects really think about the importance of, and how are people doing this? And so that's where we asked Susan for a little help to dig into the market research. So I am going to let's see if we can get this moving. Let Susan talk a bit about the research and how we did this.
So the idea of the research was really to test Jamie's point of view about what she believes business relationship building and connection is about. Our job is not to prove her right, it's to try to prove her wrong. So we poked at a lot of issues around this, just basically to see how business leaders think about this in context. So we had about a 15-minute online survey. It was completed by 189 leaders. These are folks mostly who are owning or running a business of 50 people or less, primarily. So a lot of professional service firms, consultants, stuff like that. We do have statistically reliable results on the study with those numbers. And when you take a dive into the data visualization of the results, which you will be able to do, Jamie will share some information about that later, you'll be able to see where there are statistically reliable differences between groups in terms of a question and where things are sort of just directional. The other piece that was in this is really trying to understand not just what people are doing or how big their companies are or what their role is, but to understand how they think about this topic, whether they call it gifting, whether they think about it as relationship building or connection or nurturing. What do they think about the value of and the importance of maintaining these types of relationships with various audiences? So that's the study, and we're going to go through sort of some key findings from it today, but there's going to be a lot that we don't have time to share today. So you're going to have a full report of it you can access. You're going to have the visualization, and Jamie's going to be talking about it all year.
Cool. Yeah, a year and more, I'm sure.
A year and more.
All right. So one of the big things we found stepping out of this is that there were really four mindsets. Oh, is that my echo? How do I mute everyone here?
I don't hear an echo.
Okay, good. Okay, so there's really four mindsets we saw coming out of this, and that's how do people think based on their own values and challenges about strategic engagement and relationship building. And no, I mean, they were all pretty equal.
Yeah, very, very similar in size in this group.
Oops,
and they really don't have a lot of differences demographically. So what's really different about them is that they have these sort of sets of attitudes that connect a group, the people within a group, and make them different from the other segments. So let's talk a little bit, Jamie, about sort of what these folks are. And my challenge to you as you think about this is, are you or do you know people who are in each of these groups when they think about relationship building in business?
Right. So the first group, the trust builders, what they would say is that strong relationships come from trust and consistency, not just gestures. So these are the people that think very rationally about relationship building. They don't see emotion playing a role in this at all. They believe it is the responsibility of the business to develop that trust. Because of that, they don't see the emotional part of it. They really undervalue gifting. And they are the only segment that actually believes gifting creates a sense of obligation.
Yeah, they worry about that aspect. And so I think not all of these people are older. They are significantly more likely to be 50 or older relative to the gift lovers, that fourth group that we'll talk about. But generally speaking, they're across the spectrum age-wise. But they do sort of have an old-fashioned perspective, I think, on relationship building. It's about building loyalty. They see the relationships between companies and their vendors, their clients, their prospects as very much organizational relationships as opposed to the personal ones. And they actually feel that technology has helped with connection because not as much of their connection is based on sending something through the mail, right? It's about being consistently in touch and engaged. And so there are some groups that really don't feel that way about tech in relationship building, but these folks do. So they have a very high level of priority on doing this. It just isn't always about sending something in gift wrap.
Well, and I will admit, I apologize, Jacob, but when she first shared this group with me, I immediately thought that's our men. That I was wrong. It's very equal.
You're wrong. Yeah, there's no gender difference between any of these, for sure.
But I do find it funny that it skews those of us a little bit more aged.
Yeah, I think it's just more a traditional view of how businesses have built relationships with each other over time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just noting all of the cats joining the party here. Libby's cat is joining us as well. Okay, so deep connectors, the next segment, they would tell you that they really want to know people that they work with on a business relationships should feel personal. I get these people. They see little difference between personal and professional, and they actually believe in order to develop those long-term relationships, you have to get to know somebody personally. Now, because of this need to have that depth, they have more of a challenge in consistently getting to that level and executing efficiently across many.
Yeah, these folks don't really have boundaries when it comes to a professional relationship versus a personal relationship. And I am absolutely in this group, and I know you are too, Jamie, and a lot of us here, probably Hannah, definitely. But I think that it's not that they're trying to be inappropriate. It's that they really believe that understanding someone individually that you work with is a key to building long-lasting loyalty and mutual support and friendship. So for their priorities, personalization is important. These people are not going to send the same thing to everybody. They're going to have personalized notes. And for them, tech gives them some pause because sometimes it can feel impersonal, online connection or social media or some of those kinds of things can do that. So they're very wary about how they use tech in building relationships. But they really just sort of break the wall.
Okay, so the third group is our connection seekers. And this is the group that feels like it's harder than ever to make any kind of real connection and that tech gets in the way. So they feel that across the board, so personal and professional. And they really believe that the companies they work for should change the way they're building relationships.
Yeah. These folks come from a place of disconnect. They're feeling it personally, they're feeling it professionally. And when they look around, they don't have a lot of support for overcoming that. They say that their organization doesn't do a very good job of that, and doesn't have strategies for that.
Right.
They feel that tech doesn't really allow them to build a connection the way that they would like. They really want to feel supported, appreciated, and they want to provide that for others, but they lack any kind of infrastructure or guidance about how to do that effectively. So it's something that they want, but it's not something that they are experiencing today. That makes me sad. But I know there are a lot of us out there.
I know.
I think especially since the pandemic, I think it's very difficult. And I think especially if you were young during the pandemic, some of this is very difficult to sort of even think about because your early years in business weren't at a time when there was a lot of connection being built. People were very isolated. So, I feel for these folks.
For sure. All right. Our last group is my gift lovers. I get these. I think I've fallen in both the deep connector and gift lover. A thoughtful gift speaks louder than words, and it's how I show I care. Now, these are the people that obviously value gifting, but probably lack a strategy. They're much more about the short-term delight, the quick hit of giving something, but they may not always put much into how to do so meaningfully. They are the ones who understand that deep long-term relationships need both the action and the emotion part of it.
Yeah. These people can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to gifting. So I have a wonderful colleague in my agency network group who just like, you'll just get something from her and she'll just be like, hey, I was in this place and I thought about you. Boom. And I got you this. And it brings her great joy to do that. She does it in her personal life and she does it with her professional contacts too. She's very supportive and mothering, and you definitely just sort of feel that thoughtfulness just ooze out of her all the time. So the trick for these folks is figuring out how to scale that with all of the various business relationships that we have, and how to make it actually function in their business without just sucking them dry and having them go shopping at 11:30 every day for the rest of the afternoon. Right.
Anna, you have a question?
I do. Well, not a question, just an observation. So obviously, you guys know I have the blessing to see a lot of this research from a lot of different people. And I think what's interesting about yours is that there's not an audience here that doesn't buy into this. Like typically, Susan, with the audiences that we see in the different research that you do for different people, there's like usually a group that's like, yeah, I don't buy into this, or yeah, I'm kind of a doubter, or yeah, I'm like one of the contrarian types. But in Jamie's research, I don't see any of that here. Everybody buys into this, which is pretty cool.
That's a great point. And Jamie's going to talk about some of that, because what we saw was overwhelmingly to me, a surprisingly high prioritization on building these types of connections and recognizing how important they are. So take it away, Jamie.
Yeah, no, great.
Yeah, great point.
Segue.
Thank you for that comment, Hannah.
Love it. And you will.
Did you pay her for that little intro into the next section?
I'll check my Venmo later. Thank you.
Did you send her a gift?
There's probably a gift in the mail. So as Susan said earlier, there'll be more to come on the mindsets as we move through some of the upcoming content and release the findings. So gosh, I'm trying to watch the chat, and all right, so here's the actual data. What we wanted to what we asked is, does the strategic engagement matter? Does this relationship building stuff really drive business success? And we all know it's hard to get anybody to agree on anything these days, right? But here's the thing I love about this research. Overwhelmingly, yes. People hands down agree. This stuff matters.
And these percentages are crazy. So we would have something in the survey. We did have something in the survey that was a statement: important business relationships are worth investing time and money in. And everybody who took the survey would rate that from I disagree completely to I agree completely. This 94% is the folks who strongly agreed, not just agreed to some degree, but top two box agreement. So that is overwhelming prioritization on the value of investing time and money in these kinds of relationships. And you see the same thing, that they strongly agree that professional relationships cannot survive without a foundation of trust.
Right.
And when people feel genuinely cared about, not superficially, not performatively, they are more likely to be loyal. We've seen that in other research. Hannah, the research that we did with predictive ROI confirmed that as well. And that most people want more meaningful interactions. So I know that, at least in my career, there have been a lot of folks who felt like there was an important boundary between personal and business, and people didn't want personal leaking into the business, or the business becoming personal. What we see today is a dramatically different picture than we were seeing in, the early 90s or whatever with respect to that. People do want meaningful relationships in their work.
So we won't go through each of these, but you can see overwhelmingly and care people believe that it improves profitability. But
Yeah,
what I
they
want
see
to
the importance of it. They see the value for the business.
right. What I want to call out though is you can see we've highlighted a number of phrases here: relationship, trust, care, connected. And I think it's very common that we're going to use some of these words interchangeably, and we did throughout the research itself as well. And so you might be wondering, like, well, what's the thread here? How do they kind of play together to impact strategic engagement? So once again, I kind of want to share a little bit of a definition here. What I love is that this research actually made something very clear for me. I've been saying for a while now that we've all learned about the know, like, and trust. People need to know you, like you, and trust you before they do business with you. And I've been saying that there is something broken about this in today's environment. And I feel like the research kind of made that clear. So when you think about every relationship starts as a connection, that's your no. And ultimately, the goal is to move it to a long-term relationship that gives you that opportunity for conversion. But in order to do that, you have to earn their trust. We know this. But here's where the problem lies. And Susan, I think you can back me up on this. There is a lot of research right now that is telling us that trust is at an all-time low in our environment. And it's
Yes.
not just, government and economy. I mean, it is everywhere, business. We are not easily giving away our trust like we once did. And we all know why. I mean, how can you trust anything that's put in front of you these days?
Yeah,
Even
59% according to Edelman of
yeah.
59% of US consumers believe that business leaders are intentionally trying to mislead them. And that's only like 11 points lower than government leaders. So that's not a great place. That's not a great place to be.
Right.
In terms of building trust. What I've been telling my community is that you've got to stop thinking that you're at a baseline of zero. You're at a negative baseline. We are starting from a position of distrust, an assumption of distrust.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And this is where I think the change needs to come. And this is where I think care sits in the middle. Going forward, if we want to move our connections into feeling like we are trusted and worthy of hiring and to having a relationship, we need to bring in some of this care. And I'm going to define and show you how we can showcase that care to win their trust. And this is where the social psychology, the science of relationship comes in. All right. In order for us to be in a relationship, people need to feel three things. They need to feel understood, validated, and cared for. You show me that you understand me when you recognize what's happening in my world. You make me feel validated when you show me that my experiences, opinions, and aspirations matter. You see me for them, like what I believe in. And you show me you care when you show me that you will be there for me to support me and you appreciate me. Okay. Unless I feel these things, we don't move forward with me trusting you and into a relationship. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want us to bring that forward as you see this research, because it's really clear what's happening here. As we shared in that early stat, overwhelmingly people agree relationships, care, it's important stuff. 70% of people say showing your important business contacts that you care is a top 3 priority. 21% say it's their number 1 priority because we aren't feeling it anywhere else right now, right?
Yeah. I think what's amazing about this is these are business owners and largely relatively small business owners, and they're owners or leaders in those businesses. So any of you on the call that are in that situation, you know how much work there is to do in a day. You know how many things you have to manage. And yet we see a fifth of these people say that showing important business contacts that they care about them is their number 1 priority, and 70% say it's in their top 3, which that one kind of blew me away. Actually, I think that's really reassuring, but that's a surprisingly large number.
Right. And then look at the next one, 80%, that getting to that relationship standpoint is extremely important. Now, here's the disconnect. 29% of people say feeling deeply connected to professional contacts on social media. Only 29% feel that way, that they can feel deeply connected. There's your gap.
It's not doing that job for most folks.
Because
it's not enough.
Right. So to me, deeply connected reflects getting to that relationship piece. And that's exactly right, because digital allows us to connect with the masses. I can know thousands of people, but I can't relate to them all. I cannot develop the relationship there. Cannot show people what we need to in order to earn that trust.
Yeah. And Hannah points out that she doesn't think that 80% of people even agree that the world is round.
Pretty true.
Spherical.
Right. Fake.
I was impressed by the consistency across all of these segments about these beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the other big thing we think is important for people to know. Leaders are now rating trust just as important with the services you provide in order to convince prospects to buy from you. It is no longer good enough just to have a great product and service. You have to actually start earning my relationship before I'm even going to give you any kind of a chance to hire you.
Well, and that goes back to, again, there isn't an assumption of trust anymore. It's gone.
Right.
So where people used to buy stuff from us and just assume that we would be trustworthy, they don't anymore. So that's become a really critical element in buying decisions. And we see it across, we do hundreds of studies and we see it across every vertical, B2B, B2C, everywhere.
But this is where I really want to caution people. I think we used to think of trust as, well, it's me. You trust me. But it's not about us anymore. It's about proving that you see that person in order for me to give you my trust. I need to know you see me in everything that's important in my world, and then I'm going to trust you. Okay. Sorry. I get really excited.
Go you.
See, here's the bottom line. When we lead with care, that's when our relationships become more profitable. This relationship building thing is no longer just a soft skill. It is now a business strategy rooted in science.
And I should add, when you dig into the research, one of the things you see is that people don't view this as a one-sided benefit. People don't see this as something that they get at the expense of the person that they're having a relationship with. They very much see this as mutually supportive and beneficial, which is as it should be.
I love that you pointed that out, because I haven't been able to articulate that in the work we do, but we see that time and time again. There is something very interesting that happens as we start working with people. That reciprocation, it spirals. People say we're going to start by doing this one thing, and all of a sudden there's this feeling that comes along, and you start doing more, and that's why.
Well, and we see folks in the position. We asked about sort of their own experience and who they nurture and the kinds of relationships that they build, and you will see it among these business leaders, not only with their clients and prospects, folks who are going to pay them money, but with their vendors to whom they pay money, and with strategic partners where there is no money exchange. So it's a very 360 view of the benefits of this.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So you might be asking, great, yep, I align, I agree, but really, is there a return? And once again, this stuff was so strong. If I can click correctly.
And I want people to know, this was asked in context in a very neutral way. Everyone had, we didn't have a response option that said, I agree completely, I agree wholly, I agree very much, and I agree mostly. That wasn't the range. They had they could disagree with any of this. In the way that we phrased it. But the numbers are amazing. So they themselves overwhelmingly feel appreciated when receiving a thoughtful gift from a current vendor. 40% say it makes them view that vendor more positively. 69% say it makes them more likely to continue working with that vendor.
There's your retention, folks.
Yep. 70% would recommend a current vendor to someone else if they express care and thoughtful giving. 91% of the companies in our study, this blew me away, Jamie, that are measuring the results of their direct engagement strategy say it delivers a return on investment. 91% of those who are measuring it, and 96% of all of them believe that showing care improves profitability. Half say it does so to a great degree. So these folks are not only, and it's a cyclical thing. You wonder why so many of them prioritize this. This is why, because they're seeing and either directly measuring or experiencing the profitability and loyalty impact of this effort. This is why it is so high on their priority list, because they're seeing it happen, both on the receiving end and the giving end.
Now, I want to point out, because that 91% of the companies measuring, I want to just call to your attention about measuring, right? I think it's really easy. People believe, well, did I get more sales or not? Okay. But we overlook a bigger picture here if that's the only measurement we have. So when we work with our clients, we work really hard to make sure that they're looking at other important pieces of information. Did that person schedule an additional conversation with you? Because each additional conversation is the potential for more, purchases, for more referrals, actually even more collaboration, introductions, invitations to speak. You're overlooking other valuable opportunities that come into play here when you're nurturing these relationships if you're only measuring, did it return a sale?
Yeah, and I think one of the ones that people really fail to recognize is word of mouth and business coming from people you may not actually know. You may not have actually had any direct contact with, but someone that you do know has told somebody else who is then coming to you. So there's this, we all talk about how powerful word of mouth is for our businesses, and it's the number one reason we all get work. But there's a whole nother circle there that is possible when you do this kind of thing, because word of mouth about that gets even further.
Right.
So you get people coming to you who have been, we get folks coming to us who we don't even know the person that referred them to us, because of the sort of telephone chain of that. So folks are seeing it.
And Hannah points out, is exactly right. What if 70% of your existing customers recommended you, referred you?
Yeah, can you imagine?
What the heck would that look like? Right?
Yeah.
But we're overlooking it. Now, the thing that you're not seeing reflected in the data, when we ask them about which category of relationships they are nurturing, people were really good at nurturing. When I say really good, people responded that they nurtured clients and they nurtured teams, but they overlooked prospects and strategic partners pretty frequently. So let me show you what you're leaving on the table by not focusing on prospect nurturing as well. Okay. So when you have a strategic plan to nurture prospects, people were reporting they're earning trust faster, they're converting more, and you're getting a competitive edge here, right? Look at this. 59% of people say when they receive a gift from a prospective vendor, it would make them pay more attention. Hannah, how many times do people you work with ask how to get a foot in the door? The number of times that people
say, I could just get in the room, I do great. I hear that all day, every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
You show them you care before you even have any type of, conversation. That opens their eyes.
Yeah. These numbers, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
No, I was just
I didn't want to step on you. You can look at these numbers on the slides, but I think what is so striking to me is, in this, more than ever, in this environment with assumed distrust, people do it. We all know, B2B or B2C, people do research before you ever know that they're looking at your business or the products and services that you sell. And more than ever, if they don't trust you before they've even talked to you, you don't get the sale. They're not going to spend their time if they distrust you. They just won't. So this component of building trust with prospective clients is so critical because it gives them an opportunity to learn about you before they decide to give you their credit card number, you know? So I think that this combined with the word of mouth that goes to prospective customers of yours that you don't even know about builds trust in the process exactly when it is most needed. You know, clients have already decided to trust you to a certain extent. So you need to nurture and maintain that, right?
Yeah.
But these guys don't come from that place yet.
Now, I want to share our own internal statistic of the clients we've been doing this nurturing with. We're seeing anywhere between a 21 to 27% return, a conversion rate. And
with leads?
With leads. And now here's the thing, and this is coming even 2 to 3 years later, they're referring. Like we received a referral for a $30,000 project from a prospect, right? Like value continues to come over time.
Yeah, okay. I've signed 6 projects in the last 4 months who were referred by people I've never worked with.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we see the return. We see that there's huge alignment, that it's important, but what is standing in the way of people having a strategic engagement plan and executing it with excellence? Because I promise you something's standing in the way. Look at this number. Only 34% actually have a documented strategy, and 26% say, yeah, it's pretty informal. Well, time constraints. Time constraints and consistency are 2 of the biggest barriers, which is crazy because the thing that can actually get over that hurdle is to actually develop the strategy and the plan, which we clearly are not taking the time to do, even though we know it's that important and that valuable.
This was me all over the place. Like I would like 1 year I would go to an online thing where you could buy gifts and have them sent to people. One very memorable year, I decided to send everybody a local barbecue sauce, and my assistant packaged it poorly, and they arrived broken and looking like they'd been in my basement for 3 years. It was memorable, but not in the way you would want. Right. So I was just sort of all over the place, and sometimes doing it and sometimes not doing it or whatever. And one of the things that working with you, Jamie, was really helpful for is we have a strategy now. There is a method to our madness in terms of what we're doing and who we're nurturing. And the great thing about that, if you're one of those gift givers out there, the nice thing about that is you've got a budget. You've got a process, you're picking your opportunities, you've already established sort of when you want to connect with people, under what circumstances and what you're trying to accomplish. You've got your resources or your gifts already, pulled together, and it just runs, and that's that consistency.
Right. And I think, but the key that you're kind of calling out here is that it's because you have assigned someone to help hold you accountable. Now, in your case, you outsourced it, but that's one of the big things I would recommend is make someone responsible for this, whether it's, a person or a team, or you have to outsource it. But once you do that, it starts to put the action in motion and you're more likely to do it. Now, it's not that people don't want to or don't know this. A lot of times the other barrier is, yeah, I get it, but I don't even know what I would do. I don't know how to do this and be successful at it. So you can see another thing, people were having trouble. What is going to be impactful and meaningful? What is going to differentiate us? And this is where I want to call out, and I will give you a tip for something you can all do. This is where you have to get into the deep research of understanding the clients, the prospects, the people that you have on your list to nurture. You have to know what's important to them, because we said that whole care piece, it's not about you. Okay, so you can do 2 Google searches today that will help you with this. You can go out and you can ask Google, you got to know the industry these people are in, and you can say, Google, what are the 2025 goals for companies in this industry? And what are the 2025 challenges for people in this industry? And it's going to serve up. Now, don't just base this on like one report. Look at multiple links that it shows you, because you're going to find a pattern of keywords. Take those keywords and figure out how you can be helpful related to it, and let it have nothing to do with you expecting something in return. That's how you're going to start to improve these relationships and figure out something that's very impactful.
Yeah, I love that, Jamie. And one of the things that was really powerful for me in starting to work with you a number of years ago was how you encouraged us to think about the vibe, the culture, and how we could share how we are, not just who we are, with our audiences. And we've had, now successive, really successful, holiday gifts or thanks for becoming a client gift that all fall within something that's very within our wheelhouse in terms of our culture, in terms of humor, in terms of a level of casualness, in terms of, all of these kinds of things that really, I think, does differentiate. And that's part of that memorable component. So the meaningful is you understand me, you get me, you're going to try to help me with what I'm struggling with. The memorable is like, nobody else would have sent this to me. Like nobody else would have taken this particular angle on this, that reminds me. So you can really go beyond the here's my logo on a coffee mug or a mouse mat. There's a lot of other ways, I think, to communicate who you are as an organization and build trust outside of just sticking your logo on stuff. And in fact, we saw a lot of folks who were like, yeah, logo stuff doesn't do it for me. That doesn't seem personal. It doesn't seem like you made a special effort.
Right. Well, is it? I mean, ask yourself what you're giving to them. Like, how is this helping someone? Right. I mean, it can be. Do not get me wrong. Your logo can work. Your branding can work as long as the overall message reflects how you're helping them or how you care. Right.
Yeah. And there are things that you can do to keep things memorable. Like I still have Sharon's lovely little calendar that she sent out last year, where you tear off the pages and over time it becomes a little tree with a tree house in it.
Right.
And it's far beyond its use as a calendar, but it sits on my desk right there every day. And every time I see it, I think of Sharon and how thoughtful she is.
I see those advertised all the time, and I've always kind of wanted one. I'm gonna have to go get one now.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Okay, look at Damn It
Jacob says he still has his Damn It doll.
one of Susan's gifts has, I swear, become like the bar for mentions and how long this. I mean, it's been 3-4 years since she
3 years, I think. 3 or 4 years we sent out the Damn It doll.
And it's on everyone's desk. It's back here on mine. You probably can't see it, but that thing gets more mentions, and everybody knows. Yeah.
Well, because it went out at a time of great frustration for agency leaders who are our audience. Everybody was working really hard and having a tough time. Yeah. And we tied it to the fact that most of them don't like doing math because they're mostly creatives. Yeah. And so we gave them something to slam on their desk when they're frustrated about math. Right. And and people remember it. So I think there's lots of ways to be memorable without your logo front and center.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, bottom line, what the data is showing us is that strategic engagement, yes, does equal business growth along with long-term relationships. We have about 10 minutes together, and I could give you a quick rundown of some steps to actually implement this yourself, or we could take time for questions. I want to offer you a couple of things too. So let me first do this, and then you guys can decide.
Yeah, if you have a question, put it in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on it while Jamie's talking through some advice, and then I'll interrupt you
Yeah.
You know, I'm good at that, Jamie.
Thank you. Yay. Listen, we are going to, because you registered for this, and you'll be on that list. Once we do release the executive report, you'll get notification of that. You're going to have access to all of the data that's recording. We used to be very consistent about the Q&As. I do intend to get those going where we can have some more conversation about this. But I want to offer two things, and I can't believe I don't have it sitting here. If this would be helpful, I released my book this week, and in it is a detailed step-by-step for instructions for how you can create that strategy. And for registering for this webinar, I'd be happy to send a copy of that book to any of you at no cost. So Carrie's going to give us the link on that. And then we created an assessment tool. It's 6 questions long for anyone who wants to kind of get a gauge for how you're doing with actually having your own strategic engagement strategy. At the end of the 6 questions, you will also receive links to additional resources there. So we'll put the link in chat for that as well. But like I said, I can either walk you through some quick steps on how we would teach you to do this, or we can open this up for questions with the remaining time.
I don't see any questions yet, Jamie, but maybe you could talk about this. I mean, obviously, your company does this for clients, but if you're a small business owner, professional service firm, something like that, and you're looking at handling this yourself with a minimal staff, what do you think? I mean, you mentioned sort of making somebody responsible for this. What do you think you would advise as sort of the first steps toward building a strategic engagement effort inside your business if you couldn't hire out for it?
So, first 3 steps would be to identify the category of relationship that is in most need of nurturing. So whether that's your existing prospects or existing clients, maybe you already have something going on, you're good at nurturing those relationships, your prospects or your strategic partners. I will give you an example of in like the financial industry, we tend to see them focus on either existing clients or strategic partners. Agency space and other professional service providers typically tend to go with new business. We're not good at doing that on our own. So a prospect list. So once you decide on the category, start working on the list. A lot of people say they have it, but if I asked you to send us that spreadsheet, it's not going to be there. We're going to ask, we'll get that for you. Okay. So put it on paper, list out who those relationships are. If you're working on existing clients, the key is going to be to focus on segmenting them. And I don't know that the number really matters as much as getting the segments right. And then prospects and strategic partners, at least 10, no more than 25. And then the third step is go and research those industries, those people, because you're not going to be able to do anything else meaningful from there if you don't.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about one of the things that was really impactful for me was your Dream 25 teaching when it comes to prospects? Because I think one of the things that's challenging with prospects is you're like, oh, I've got a call from this person, or someone's connected with me on LinkedIn or whatever, and it can feel very sort of haphazard in terms of nurturing prospects and which ones do you do? But you have a process for that, I know, and you've talked about it on your podcast and in your blog post. Maybe Carrie can post something to give people sort of a sense of what that is. But can you talk about that a little bit in terms of defining that list for prospects?
Yeah, so the links that we gave you there, both the book and then the assessment tool, will have links to those very specific blogs. But it does definitely start with the first step when it comes to your list and building that prospect list. I would ask people, who is your current best client? A client that is maybe worth 5-10% of your overall revenue today. Find that client and identify what is their revenue, how many employees do they have, what other key kind of demographics might you find about that company, and then take that to a LinkedIn or a chat and find lookalikes. Right. And then start digging into those companies to get a sense for if they're really a fit. But I mean, we get that question a lot too. And I know Hannah does, like, well, where do I even start with my list? Like, again, look for a company that is going to be so valuable that it makes sense for you to invest this kind of time and money. Because again, if you think about that conversion rate, or what was it, like 30% would be consider scheduling a call with you.
Yeah.
That's worth your time.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things we asked in the survey was if respondents think how they feel about spending $1,000 a year on a prospect in this kind of engagement thing. And overwhelmingly, they said it would be worth it because again, they're seeing returns. So if you sort of think about that as context for what you might spend on somebody, what you're talking about is basically looking at who your best clients are and whatever characteristics make them the best, whether it's their size or their budget or their mindset or whatever, or how visible they maybe are in a community where they could influence others or any of those kinds of things. And then basically look at your prospects and score them in some way as to how well they match up, and then start developing a really intentional list of specific, not generalized prospects, I want to go after this industry, but a very specific list of individual companies that you want to nurture over the next year or whatever, and just commit to that.
Right. So you bring up a good point about a year. No matter which category you select, our recommendation is to sit down and plan a year's worth of engagement. For your prospects and strategic partners, that's one touch point every 7 weeks throughout the year. Again, this can be digitally or physical touch points that you're sending. And for your existing clients, the best practice is going to be once a quarter. Some people are, I know it's popular in the financial industry. They're doing once a year. They have some constraints with compliance and whatnot. So once a year is about typical there. Two, I mean, if you could do stuff digitally, sending them information, that is a gift. It's being helpful, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I know we've only got like a few minutes left, but I thought it might be helpful for listeners if you could talk about some of the things that the typical business leader might not think of as in the gift category that have been really powerful. So I know, for example, that for some folks, including predictive ROI, one of the things that they did was send out a binder that had a bunch of research and resources for their audience, and then they would regularly send out additions to go in that binder. So it was just helpful stuff, helpful information, as opposed to something that you might otherwise think of as a gift. Are there other kinds of things that you've done in that category that are more resources?
Books are very popular, and it doesn't have to be your book.
One
of our clients had this great idea. A lot of people would ask her what she's reading lately, and so once a quarter she'd send out this, like, what I'm reading, this, and people followed along. They loved that. Think about the engagement.
I know, right? I've gotten gifts from books from folks who it wasn't their book that they'd written. But the ones that really hit me were, there was a card right inside that said, hey, Susan, I think you'd really appreciate this particular chapter. Or I've put, where I've tucked this in the book is something that I think you're exactly. So again, meaningful, shows thought, care, helpful, as opposed to even just sending a book like, hey, you might want to read this. I really liked that approach when I've gotten books in the past.
Articles, and when you like print them out, and then make some kind of note or include like a summary page of why the articles might be helpful to them. So do their thinking for them. Highlight like the important pieces. it's more likely to get shared and looked at when you do that.
Yeah. And this isn't the, hey, look, I'm in Forbes kind of article, right? This is
again, not about you. Not about you.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I was gonna make I go to physical a lot, you guys, but like here's why. Hannah had a stat that said on MailChimp every day, was it?
Yeah, 14,000 new marketers join MailChimp every single day. So your prospects' inboxes are to the brim. 14,000.
Noise.
I looked up that stat. I triple checked because I thought there's no way that's insane, but it's true.
That's insane.
14,000 a day.
So again, I say get it out of the inbox and put it in their hands. It also trips the part of the brain that denotes value, right? Like, oh, someone printed this out. I better, I should take a look at that. So
they stick around, don't they?
Yeah.
Those little physical things, whether it's a printed thing or whatever. Yeah.
All right. I know
awesome.
We're out of time.
More to come. There's so much good stuff in this research. I encourage you all to check it out, the report and the visualization if you're into that sort of data thing. And I hope you enjoy it. I found it really powerful as a business owner to look at that and see sort of how people are thinking about stuff. It gave me some really cool ideas. So thank you, Jamie, for letting me be part of that.
Yay, thank you. I will stick around if somebody has any last minute questions. I still have a little time. So otherwise, thank you so much. Watch for more information to come. I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. This is awesome.
Yay, thanks.
Thank you to you both.
Yes.
This was great.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Libby, send me your cat. No, I'm kidding. I would be very allergic.
Wilbur will eat him.
Yeah.
Jamie, Jacob just asked if we've ever done any physical video cards.
What's a physical video card?
I think he means the video, like a recording.
The
actually
QR recording,
Jacob.
Right?
Funny enough.
No, so actually more like, those Hallmark cards where you open and it like plays happy birthday, but instead there's a video screen inside.
Yeah.
Really?
Paints with those, but curious your experience with that.
Yeah. We've actually seen it in almost more of like a box form, and they can get really expensive. Maybe the pricing has come down. So they have video players that it's very custom. I think they do well. Who isn't interested in watching something, right? Like, wow, what is this? Actually, this can sound weird, but I mean, someone pointed out like Taylor Swift's marketing strategy for her whoever is in a certain level VIP fan group, like they do a lot of PR mailings and they usually have some of that interactive stuff like that, and people friggin' rave about that. So
but she's Taylor Swift.
I know.
Right, I'm trying to envision myself dancing on a little video insert for a card. I'm not sure that would be. I would be like that gal who mimics all the models and stuff.
I would 100% watch it though, Susan.
See, exactly. Exactly. Like, what is
would it build trust, Shondell? Would it build trust? I don't know.
I mean, I'm not sure I'm your proper audience in that category, but yeah, it would at least build the desire to go have happy hour. I mean,
at least authenticity would be
vulnerability.
There, right?
She danced like a fool.
Vulnerability would definitely be there.
Anybody who can shake like that must be brilliant.
Right.
I twerked on a football bet once in front of my kids, and it scarred them permanently. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Jacob, does that help at all?
I've received.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I've received those. So we have a client who will send it out for like Christmas and Thanksgiving and like a random thank you here and there, and they're cool. But honestly, the cards that I've received, like the physical cards I've received, and I know he's paying for it, right? Like I guess I know what he's paying for it. So. Like, I think, I remember them because, like, I remember it right now because you brought it up. But honestly, I haven't thought about it since I took less than 3 minutes to open the email, see it, let it go through. I have the option to click, like, send a response or a thank you. And I always do that. but it feels very generic, and then it gets deleted out of my email and I move on with my day. And there's just nothing tangible. Like, Jamie, you sent me that Flinter card 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. Like, and it literally says on the inside of it, like, hey, enjoy your stupid Flinter, love Jamie or something, like something super simple and meant to
Hannah
be a
sent me
joke.
a postcard that's still on my desk, that's just
Right.
kind
Like that
of,
Flinter card is still right there. And I get to scan by it every once in a while. I don't know. I think the card itself is definitely better than the email ones. It's a nice thought in the moment, but it only sticks with the moment. That's probably what it is.
Are you asking about the email ones though, or I think he said
I think he said physical.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But the tangible ones you get in the mail and open. And
I mean, again, when done well, whatever the message is or whatever the video is, has the same potential. So
nice job, Jamie.
Thank you.